Though the court and the city still doted on King Aegon's long-lost brother, that clever, gallant boy Viserys, the same could not be said for his beautiful 19-year-old Lyseni wife. Larra Rogare had taken up residence in the Red Keep with Viserys. Yet, in her heart, she remained a lady of Lys, always seeming a stranger and ill at ease in Westeros. Though fluent in High Valyrian and the dialects of Mere, Tyrosh and Old Volantis, in addition to her own Lyseni tongue, Lady Larra made no effort to learn the common tongue. Seeing it as a vulgar language she would not lower herself to, preferring to rely upon a translator to make her wishes known. Her ladies were all Lyseni, as were her servants. It was as if there was a Lyseni enclave in King's Landing. The gowns she wore all came from Lys. Her father's ships delivered the latest Lyseni fashion to her 3 times a year. She even had her own protectors, much to the dismay of the King's Guard, whose job it was to protect the royal family. Lyseni swords guarded her night and day, under the command of her brother Larra Rogare, and a towering mute from the fighting pits of Marine called Sandok the Shadow. The number of Lyseni guardsmen almost matched that of Westerosi for some time. All this the court and kingdom might have accepted in time, had Lady Larra not also insisted upon keeping her own gods, an issue that could not be so easily put aside, given the tensions between the crown and the faith in the past. She would have no part in the worship of the Seven. In fact, when the High Septon asked to meet with Viserys and Larra during a visit to King's Landing, Larra's response was nothing but a laugh. Her worship was reserved for certain of the manifold gods of Lys, the 6-breasted cat goddess, Pantera, Yandros of the Twilight, who was male by day and female by night, the pale child Bacalon of the sword, faceless Sagel, the giver of pain. Her ladies, her servants, and her guards would join Lady Larra at certain times, performing obediences to the queer, ancient deities, much to the dismay of the faithful at court. But cats were seen coming and going from her chambers so often that men began to say they were her spies, purring at her in soft voices of all the doings of the Red Keep. It was even said that Larra herself could transform into a cat, to prowl the gutters and rooftops of the city. However, darker rumours soon arose. The acolytes of Yandros could supposedly transform themselves from male to female and female to male through the act of love, and whispers went about that her ladyship often availed herself of this ability at twilight, so she might visit the brothels on the Street of Silk as a man. And every time a child went missing, the ignorant would look at one another and talk of Sagel's insatiable thirst for blood. Even less loved than Larra of Lys were her 3 brothers, who had come with her to King's Landing. Oredo commanded his sister's guard, while Lotho set about establishing a branch of the Rogare Bank atop Visenya's hill. Rogario, the youngest, opened an opulent Lysene pillow house called the Mermaid beside the river gate, and filled it with parrots from the Summer Isles, monkeys from Sothorios, and hundreds of exotic girls and boys from every corner of the earth. Though their favours cost 10 times as much as any other brothel dared to charge, Rogario never lacked for customers. Great lords and common tradesmen alike spoke of the beauties and wonders to be found behind Mermaid's carved and painted doors. Almost all of what we know of the myriad marvels of the Mermaid comes from Mushroom, the former fool of Queen Rhaenyra, who alone of the chroniclers of history is willing to confess to visiting the brothel himself on many occasions and partaking in many of its pleasures. Across the sea, the Daughters' War finally reached its end. When Rydun fled south to the Basilisk Isles with his remaining supporters, Lys, Tyrosh and Mere divided the disputed lands, and the Dornish took domain over most of the Stepstones. The Myrish suffered the greatest losses in these new arrangements, whilst the Archon of Tyrosh and the Princess of Dawn gained the most. In Lys, many ancient houses fell, and many highborn magisters were cast down and ruined, whilst others rose up to seize the reins of power. Chief amongst these, Lysandro Rogare and his brother Drozenko, architect of the Dornish alliance, and the return of Prince Viserys. Drozenko's ties to Sunspear and Lysandro's tie to the Iron Throne made the Rogares the princes of Lys in all but name. By the end of 134 AC, some feared they soon might rule Westeros as well. The pride and pomp and power became the talk of King's Landing. Men began to whisper of them. Lotho brought men with gold. Rogario seduced them with perfumed flesh. Oredo frightened them into submission with steel. Yet the brothers were no more than puppets in the hands of Lady Larra. It was her and the queer Lyseni gods who held their strings. The king, the little queen, the young prince, they were only children, blind to what was really happening about them, whilst the Kingsguard and the Goldcloaks and even the king's hand had been brought and sold, or so the stories went. Like all such tales, they have some truth in them, well mixed with fear and falsehood. That the Lyseni were proud, grasping, ambitious, cannot be doubted. That Lotho used his bank and Rogerio his brothel to win friends to their cause goes without saying, yet in the end they differed but little from many of the other lords and ladies of Aegon III's court, all of them pursuing power and wealth in their own ways. Though more successful than their rivals, for a time at least, the Lyseni were only one of several factions competing for influence. Had Lady Lara and her brothers been Westerosi, they might have been admired and celebrated, but their foreign birth, foreign ways and foreign gods made them the objects of mistrust and suspicion instead, from the highest places at court to the wine sinks of pot shops of Flea Bottom.